And hello, IB Biology. This is Mr. McGee, and welcome to our lesson on CO2 concentrations over Earth's history. You will, for this assignment, need access to Google Classroom as well as Microsoft Excel. I am going to be using Microsoft Excel 2013, but if you use anything similar to that on a Windows PC, as we said was required for this course, you should do fine and be able to follow. So first, make sure you have access here to Google Classroom. Go on here to the Classwork tab, and you're going to see all our stuff here, as you should normally be able to see. But here is our assignment. You click on it. Right now I have it as a draft, but it should be active when you get this. And you're going to see I have our assignment here posted, as well as your template you are going to put this in. So if I go ahead and click on this here, the assignment, this is the Google Doc where you are going to be posting your table and your graph. And then over here, the assignment, this is actually the data which I've taken the liberty to give you so you have it ready to go. You need to open this in Microsoft Excel, not Google Sheets. There's nowhere to download this, so you have to actually open in a new window, and then when you do this, you can actually click on this, and now you can download it. So I'm just going to download this to my desktop here. And so now that you've downloaded this to your desktop, let's go ahead and open Microsoft Excel. And again, the reason we're doing this on Excel is because there's many things Excel can do that Google Sheets cannot do. So please use Microsoft Excel for this assignment so you can learn and see how to do it. So starting off, we have MYA, which is millions of years ago. You can see all the way back in time, all the way to year 0, which is where we are at right now. This is the periods of time. These are actual geologic time periods where specific things happened. In fact, you may recall this is the time period in which the dinosaurs lived. Many of the early forms of life we're going to look at lived here. And then when we start to look at the age of the mammals, we really see it in this period right there. Likewise, this is the concentration of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. And you can see the levels throughout Earth's history vary considerably. This is measured in parts per million, so you always want to have your unit afterwards. And so for every million molecules, in this modern era, 409 parts per million would be carbon dioxide. So what we're going to do first is tidy this table up. So first thing I like to do is, let's go ahead and shrink these numbers, or these columns here by clicking on them like this. You don't want them too cluttered like this, just move it so that there is not as much space between them, okay? And another thing too, really quick, let's go ahead and center this by highlighting the columns like this. Go up here and click center. Now, I don't like how this is really spaced apart for atmospheric CO2, so what we're going to do is actually crunch this in even further, but, and sorry, my computer's kind of jamming if it's running a little slow right now. Notice if I crunch this in like that, look what it does to the title. That's no good. So instead, you're going to click down here and widen this up, and once again, it still does not fit. So there is a solution. You come up here to wrap text, click on it, and it fits. That's how we're going to do this. But we don't like the way this all looks, so what we're going to do here now is click on the top and highlight the top column, and we're going to tell it here to center by aligning in the middle. There we go. So make sure you have done your lab setup just like this, and we probably could space it out just a tad bit more so they're not on top of each other. And now what we're going to do is, I like to make the top titles a little more bold, so I'm going to highlight them again and come back here to my bucket, and I'm going to click on a grayer color. When you print on paper, this can be darker. That's why you don't want to get something too dark. Anyways, next thing we want to do is change a couple things. For example, this is kind of just a little petty, but that 2 should be a subscript. So let's get rid of this 2. And if you want to type in a new 2, you have to, well, there's a couple things you can do. One of them is if you're on a Windows computer, you hold Alt key and then hit 8322. And it didn't work on this program, but it works on Microsoft Word, so that's kind of weird. So the next thing we can do is just type in 2 again, and you highlight it, and you go up here to font, and you can tell it to superscript or subscript. And there we go. It looks a lot nicer when you do it that way. If you type in Alt 8322, it should type in a lowercase 2 on Microsoft Word and any other program, so I'm not sure why it didn't quite do that right there. The next thing we want to do is we want to change these numbers, because notice there's no divider in the thousands. So I'm going to go ahead down to here and highlight the numbers and go over here to the number category and click on number and come down here to number. As you can see, we're going to tell it to use a thousand separator and then click OK. And now that looks a lot nicer because we can see where the thousands are. And by the way, some of you may, when you do that, find your numbers end up doing this with many digits. You come under here to number, and this is where you can adjust your decimal points. This is how you can actually round your numbers off at the end too. So once we have that, we can look at our table and say everything's nice and centered. Heading is a different color. Everything is spaced out but not too tight on each other. And overall, this table looks really nice, so we're going to keep it as is. Next thing we need to do is create our graph. And there's a couple ways to create our graph, but the easiest way now is to say what is going to be our x and y axis. We're going to tell the computer our x-axis is going to be the periods of time in Earth's history, and our y-axis is going to be the CO2 concentration. The problem is if we do that, it's going to unclick. So the way to do this is just as follows. You click the data here, and then you are going to now hold Control on your keyboard and now click and highlight the next column. So I'll say that again. You're not holding anything now. You're just going to highlight this stuff. Now click and hold Control and now highlight this side. If you don't do it in that sequence, it is not going to work out again, so just listen to what I said again. Also, it's important you do not highlight the titles because these are not data pieces. So you're just going to highlight the raw data right here. So again, click and drag. Now hold Control and drag this side. We just told the computer this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Come up here to Insert, and we are going to insert a graph. And the appropriate kind of graph for this is not going to be a scatter plot because this is categorical data. It's in categories. If we had a numerical data here, like maybe by year or something, it would be different. But in this case, we are going to make a bar graph because this is a categorical data. Okay? And by the way, if I did that fast, I'm sorry. You come up here and click on a bar graph and pick a 2D column. You could pick a 3D graph, but I just prefer to have one like this here. Okay? Now that we've got our graph, we're going to have to kind of tidy this up just a little bit here. Because it's so wide, I like to space this out just a little bit more, and that way the data is easier to see. First thing you're going to do is need to make an appropriate title for this. So let's do CO2, CO2, I can't multitask, so forgive me. And again, we want that 2 to be subscript, so once again, come over here to the font on home after highlighting it, and then you go here to subscript, and that'll knock that 2 down to a lowercase. Okay? Next thing we're going to want to do is we want labels for our axes. So let's go ahead here and click on the plus sign to the side. On older versions of Microsoft Excel, the options for your graph are actually going to be up here. But at 2013 and newer, you just hit the plus sign and go to Axis Titles. And as we can see, it gave us a title down below. Now, in this case, you may not need a title down here because these are already labeled as time periods. So we could put time period there, but just for the sake of the graph, I'm going to go ahead and not label the bottom because these are labeled. But we definitely need a title off to this side. You click on it, and then you pretty much just highlight it like Control A. And let's call this CO2 concentration. Actually, I should say this is the mean CO2 concentration, because after all, these are samples that were the average. We want our units in parentheses, parts per million, and end it like that. Now, I am going to highlight that 2 in there. It's a little tricky, and I'm going to give it a superscript. So now you might think that's a little crammed, so we can always stretch the graph out just a little bit like this and make it a little easier to see. And if you click on this, you can actually blow this up a little bit. So it is up to you to decide how to do this. I'm not going to tell you how to make the font in here, but what you want when you're done with this lab is make your table or graph look nice like this, and make your table roughly nice looking like this. Okay? Once we're all set with this, we're going to click on your graph first, and we're going to right click and copy. And now what you're going to do is go back to Google Classroom. Oops. Go back to Google Classroom, and you remember I told you that Google assignment where you would click on? Here's the Google assignment. You are going to paste your graph down here by clicking and then right click paste. There is your graph. Now you want to size this as far as how big you think is appropriate, but make it nice and neat, and hopefully you can get this all on one page. Now the harder part is pasting our table. The reason I did this next is it's a little bit more difficult, because if you notice, when I go to copy our table, just as I did in Microsoft with the graph, and if we go to paste our table, it doesn't paste very well. So we don't want this, and I'm going to Control Z to clear that. Turns out Microsoft Excel does not like pasting tables very much. And so here's the thing, there's two solutions. You are an IB student, so you are hopefully driven and inquisitive, so I'm going to leave it to you to figure out which one to do. You may do one of two options, and by the way, hit Escape will get rid of those lines. Windows has a cool little tool called the snipping tool. You just go into your search and look up snipping tool. You click on New, and you can do this, where you go up here and you can basically highlight the table as best as you can and copy that image just as I did there. Now you can come in and paste the table just like this. Okay? Now, hopefully you can do a better job at getting the lines unlike I did here. So just kind of something to consider. Or you can always come up and add a border to it, but you know, just something to think about. The other thing you can do, and this is a little more tedious, but it is another option, and that is you can actually copy this entire set of data, and you can actually go to a new window up here, and you go to Sheets. And you remember I said we're not going to use Google Sheets? Well, you can use it for this. Open a new Google Sheet tab. Click in the corner like this. Come on. And then you just go ahead and paste it. And it pasted it. Now, it's not going to paste it exact. You are going to have to toy around with this a little more. But as you can see from here, I can copy it, and it will paste if I did it like that. So, like I said, I would recommend just using the snipping tool. It's up to you guys, but do it as best as you can. From there, what I'm going to ask you guys to do is shrink it down, not too much, but we're going to try to get this all on one page, just like this. So I can zoom out this way by hitting holding Control and wheeling on my mouse. But do as best as you can to make these graphs and these tables nice and neat, just like this. And if you come up over here and click the center, I'll zoom in again so you can see that, and you click the center button, it'll change the indentation of your picture, and this will change the indent of your table. And as you can see, we've got a nice table for our data there, and we've got our nice graph. Having said that, we will discuss the results of these in class. You must submit, you must submit by going up to here. I believe off to the side it says turn in, but on the teacher view, I cannot see that, so I do not know. Do not come over here to File and click Save, because I will not see your work. You must hit the Turn In button or the Submit button. Also, it'd be kind of nice if you put your name right there. That would help as well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not wait till the last minute. Make sure you take your time in doing this, but as IB students, you all are capable of figuring out how to do this. This video tutorial is just one step of the way. You all have a nice weekend. I will see you later. Bye.